Okay, we're good now. So calling to order the public hearing scheduled for 6:30 p.m. on May 16th, 2023. We pass the item 2.1 over to our clerk, Laura. I'm just going to read the public hearing procedure and guidelines for us all.
Members of the public may be heard only when a written submission is received, either or against or for or against. Only one person will be allowed to speak at any given time. Members of the council, when speaking, are requested to state for the record their name, address, and the name of the company they represent, if applicable. Statements from the public should be limited to 10 minutes each. The chair reserves the right to interrupt comments that extend beyond 10 minutes in order to afford everyone an opportunity to express an opinion. The chair then opens the floor for opinions and/or statements from the public. The chair will call upon each person who submitted comments concerning the application, starting in favor, and will be followed by those objecting. Each person will be given the opportunity to speak if they so desire. Once all the members of the public have been given an opportunity to speak, the chair repeats that all persons present have been given an opportunity to be heard. Public hearing is concluded. Please note, no decisions are made during the public hearing. Following the public hearing, the Woodstock Town Council will move into the regular council meeting and deal with the agenda items, including a proposed first reading of the local improvement bylaws. A bylaw must be given 3 readings in order to be enacted.
Thank you. And we will move to item 2.2, review of written submissions, and the CAO is going to handle that.
Yes, there's a couple of them. The first one, and I apologize for, I'm sure I'll mispronounce the last name, Fran Gresick. Close?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. The subject is PAC meeting. Further to our telephone conversation, March 14th, 2023, I would like to make the following statement. It is not that we don't want the sale to go through. It's we want the town to take responsibility for the infrastructure and make Wallace Street accessible to the extra traffic the new business will draw. If the town does not upgrade the street, it could cause the value of all property to decrease, including the property that Mr. Cox is buying. It would benefit the town to keep the value of a real estate at the current value or more. For example, their portion of the property taxes is based on provincial property tax. My suggestion is that the town goes ahead with the rezoning with the condition that the infrastructure is upgraded prior to the opening of the new business. Please confirm that this email has been received, and it came from Fran, Jane Gerwood, and Joan as well. And they're at 109 Wallace Street. The second letter was received from Mary Whelan. She says, I'm the owner of the parcel of land on Wallace Street, PID 10124394, that is being discussed for rezoning on Monday, March 20th. I would like to vote to have this land rezoned for the purpose of the buyer's request. I feel confident that upon rezoning, the buyer will work around the laws and requirements of the town. Yours sincerely, Mary Whelan. We recall with that, the original public hearing was supposed to be earlier. We just kept those letters and moved them forward. So they were the two letters that we have received.
Okay. So at this point, we'll move to item 2.3, which is opening the floor to comments from the general public. So we will take anyone that is speaking in favor first. You're up. Bethany. Yeah. You can step. You can come right up to the podium if you want, Jason. Just
So you want a background of the, or
whatever you would like to. This is your opportunity, and is there anybody else that is going to speak tonight?
I don't think so.
So you share with whatever you want. I mean, usually 10 minutes. If we had 20 people, we would for sure hold to that. So just, I'd say you share with council whatever it is you would like for council to hear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like you to consider rezoning the parcel. And the reason is so I can expand my business. I've outgrown the current location, and this would allow me to potentially not move again or need to move again because there's enough land that, you know, if I outgrow another building, I could probably proceed to build something else on the same property. And basically, I'd like you to know that whatever I do there will be professional, it will be attractive, and it will, you know, be positive for the appearance of the town while passing on the highway. And I guess that's pretty much it. I don't know if we go into
Yeah,
like some of this.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the time, because when we move into regular council, we can't take feedback from the general public at that point.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
now's your chance to share everything.
Sure. So I met with Andrew, Crystal, and Greg about the costs involved to repave sections of the street, plus the additional section which is grass now. Everyone has this quote.
Yeah,
Okay. So basically, I agreed to covering costs for section 3, but I feel I do not, or I should not have to cover section 1 and 2. And to be honest, that would be a deal breaker for the project. It would just put my budget like over and above what I could afford to do. With that said, I don't think anything has to be done immediate, because if the land is rezoned and I purchase it, the only thing I would be doing this year is maybe clearing it a bit to see what's there. The woods are pretty thick right now, so I can get a better feel for design and layout and whatnot. So if the town doesn't have budget or you don't have to do any of the work, to me, it's no issue on my end. I also spoke to Fran, and what I gather, they would just like a smooth surface to drive on for now. They would be okay with that. That's basically, I guess.
Yeah, okay.
Everything I know.
okay, that's great. Is anybody else speaking in favor?
We're here for support. And I know you will build a beautiful building, because Cover Tech is a very nice building. People have commented on it, and I know they'll do a good job.
Okay, and obviously you didn't get anything, no letters for opposed, and we don't have anybody here, so I just feel that do we close our comments now? Or do you want to, do you have anything to add?
Just the 2.4, the review
yeah.
of PAC. Okay. So you can see there, the document that went to PAC was quite lengthy. Lots of good information on it. I'll read what the recommendation was that came from PAC. When we move into regular session of council, of course, that would be the recommended motion. However, council will have the right to add or subtract things to that motion. We can discuss that during the regular session. So the recommendation came from PAC was to approve the application to rezone PID 10124394 on Wallace Street from rural resource to light industrial in order to permit a retail and associated warehouse use subject to the following conditions. And there's 4 of them. A, the application is brought into conformity with the town of Woodstock municipal plan. The applicant provides confirmation of an established legal easement over PID 10220036 in favor of PID 10124394 to permit driveway access to the subject property. The property owner enters into an agreement with the town of Woodstock to design and upgrade Wallace Street, as well as to propose driveway access to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works and Utility at the property owner's expense. And lastly, the environment protection land use designation and zoning that applies to a portion of the subject property is maintained and any associated policies, regulations are adhered to. So I can go into more depth of those and what they actually mean when we go into regular council.
Okay. At this point, we'll move to the meeting, a motion to adjourn.
Yes.
So that would adjourn this meeting. Could I get a motion from the table to adjourn the meeting? Nice. Yeah. Yes, for clarity, because this is our first public hearing, I believe.
Yeah.
So for all of the new council, this is not the time to debate or kind of have our discussion. That will occur during item on our regular council meeting, item 9.5.
So if we had questions for Jason, it'd be something Andrew would take back to him later.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because even though we do consideration of first and second reading, there's 3 readings.
Right.
So there could very well come questions out of in between second and third reading, we'll say. Yeah.
Or a delay.
Or,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Any?
Are we asleep also?
Seconded by Deputy Mayor.
Wake up over there.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion moved, meeting adjourned. And in reality, we're gonna just keep the camera rolling because we're gonna move right into, were you needing a break?
Yeah.
Not yet. So we're gonna move straight into regular council, but we will. Okay.
So are we done with Jason then for tonight? Or is
Uh,
how-
Yeah, he maybe wants to sit here.
Yeah, that's
right.
yeah.
All right, put that aside for now. Okay.
Me too.
Okay, so I'm gonna call to order our regular council meeting on May 16th, 2023. And we'll get right to opening remarks. I do have a few tonight. First one on the agenda is to offer our Councillor Bellier warm congratulations on the birth of the new baby boy, which happened Friday, May 12th. And his name is Easton Beckett Bellier. And as far as we know, everybody, mom and baby family's doing great. Will's here tonight. We weren't even expecting him, so, but I will say we do have, council does have a little something for you, but I wanted to show one item just because they're too cute not to share with everybody tonight. So we got some little onesies made.
Freeze it.
For Easton, not for you.
Okay.
And the first one says new in town, and it has our little town logo on the little pocket.
Very nice.
Second one says Daddy's co-counsel. New co-counsel, and then the last one says bylaw 5.12.2023 title Easton Bellier. It says, noise disturbance allowed after midnight, and it says unanimously approved on the bottom. So I thought I'd share.
Wow.
I thought I'd share that part of it with everyone.
Very nice.
I'll speak for myself, but I think this may be the only council baby unless you produce another one in this round, so it's kind of special, so congratulations. The second comment I'll make tonight is regarding the Public Safety Committee. We will have our first bulletin go out next week to the general public, and that'll get distributed via the normal means for all the other newsletters and things, which Toby will help us do. And as part of that message, there will be information on forest fire loss included on that, but I'm going to mention tonight because this morning when we woke up, the entire province was under a no burn order, and obviously the rain today helped us somewhat. As the last time I checked, after 2 o'clock, we were back to the full province being under a restricted ban. So it's just a quick little note that everybody should realize, because there's a lot of newcomers in the area that have questions on this and questions on fire pits and whatnot, and we are going to include a lot of that information in our bulletin. But just note that you need to monitor the forest fire watch details, as you do need a permit in order to burn grass and things like that. So please, for anyone new to the province, it's similar to every other province, but this time of year in particular, obviously it's a regular occurrence to see us under a no burn ban. And then the last, I guess, comment for opening remarks is I was happy to participate in a ribbon cutting ceremony at the Carleton Manor today. They opened their new wellness center room, and it was an extra special day as they dedicated the room to resident Mr. Paul Knox, who was celebrating his 100th birthday today, which is rare, and he has been advocating himself for the past couple of years to have this space to exercise. And so he was happy today to see that the place was finally opened up and unveiled, and it was a surprise to him that it was being dedicated to him. So and he vocally pushed and looked around the room and was happy to see it, and acknowledged that there was a very much lack of equipment. So that was his next, even though he turned 100 today, he's already pushing for the next phase, which is more equipment. So I think Scott Green noted one thing at a time, but that they were looking at purchasing more equipment. So it's kind of a bit of a fun event. And if I am so lucky as to turn live to be through a century, I hope my mind is as bright as Mr. Knox's. So that's the last of my opening remarks tonight, because we do have a lot of things to get through. And on that note, I will say we're going to look for an approval of the agenda, which we have no amendments for tonight, correct, Laura? Look at us getting there. So I would take a motion to accept the agenda. Got Councilor McCartney.
Okay.
Councilor Bradbury on the second. Everybody ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Motion carried. And then I will say, I will ask if there's anyone that has a declaration of conflict of interest tonight. Okay, hearing none, we'll move to item 5, which is, and we only have one set of minutes tonight, so it is the set of minutes for the council meeting that was on April 25th, which those were distributed. So hopefully everybody got a chance to read through all of those. So I would ask council if we're good, if there's any questions on that set of minutes, or if we want to entertain a motion to accept as distributed.
I move we accept it as distributed.
Okay,
I'll second.
Councilor Bellier on the second. Everybody ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those against, nay. Motion carried. Okay, moving right along, we've got the mega bike fundraiser, which I guess you want me to cover this one? It's pretty quick. This was discussed at our last meeting and we deferred it because we did not yet in this instance have a recommendation from the police. The police have since notified us that they were okay with the route and they would be there and active that day and in support of it. So I guess really, unless there's still any concerns or questions on that, they seem to feel confident. And again, remembering that this bike is massive, so it's going to be obvious. And if we have the police working in tandem with them, I trust that if they were concerned, they would have raised it. So do we have, the motion would be to allow the Mega Bike fundraiser on June 12th, 2023 between the hours of 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Do I have anybody who would like to, Councillor Williams on the motion, anyone, Councillor Bradbury on the second. Any questions on this? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion passed. Welcome.
Sorry, I thought I started at 7.
No, well, it was close. It was a start as soon as the public hearing was done, so we started a few minutes before 7. Okay, so we're moving on to item 6.2, which is the Woodstock Police Force Regionalized Policing Proposal Update, which and Jim, for you, there's a handout that goes along with this one. Do you want me to take this one too? Sure. So this is really just a continual conversation based on our last meeting, which we talked about the fact that we had submitted to Minister Chris Austin the alternative policing model that Chief Ford had presented to us previously. So this is what I promised Jim in the last meeting, which is a summary of an overview of what that model may look like should the council at the end of the day decide that the Town of Woodstock Police Force would take over the full jurisdiction. And again, as discussed last time, there is no kind of part way. We can't have one ward taken on. It's really all or nothing. So this decision to switch would then take us from the police overseeing Ward 4 to all 5 wards. So we'll go over this in summary, just for those that might be listening and here tonight. So this is a comparison, and it's just a quick little table that compares what we have in place currently versus what it would look like in 2025 should this alternative model move forward. 2024 we didn't highlight just simply because it would be a transition year and a building 2 years, so the budget is a little bit more difficult to nail down. And I did put a little asterisk there, Jim, that it could potentially exceed what the 2025 budget and future budget could look like, simply because during the transition phase, we're still going to have to carry the full cost of the RCMP for the year. So our current geographical coverage, and this is a big one to think about, is basically 15 square kilometers. If you take over the full jurisdiction, it's 500 plus square kilometers. So we can imagine that is an immensely larger area to cover. And in reality, the population goes with it. So currently this is based on 5,500 current population, or previous, I'd say current in Ward 4. So the Ward 4 population all in, this was based on 12,300. So we've, more than doubled our population and largely expanded our area. So what they like to call the cop to pop ratio, so the number of officers to the ratio of our population. So we currently in Ward 4 have one officer per 264 citizens. The new proposed model would maintain one officer per 273 citizens. So as discussed in the last, we're pretty adamant, or we have been so far anyway, around this table in conversations. To propose anything less than what we are tonight is just simply not on the table, because it would jeopardize officer safety and not provide the level of service that we think everybody's going to expect moving forward. So as we move down through, we currently have, as of today, one chief of police that would remain the same in 2025. We have one deputy chief, and that would remain the same in 2025. We currently have one reader, and that would double to have 2 readers in 2025. We have 19 police officers. In 2025, we would have 42. Administrative full-time, we currently have 2. We would have 4 in 2025. And we currently have 2 part-time administration, and that would remain the same in 2025. We have 3 auxiliary police, and in 2025, that number would grow to 6. We do not have a major crime unit or anyone designated to that to date. In 2025, we would see an addition of a major crime unit that had 3 dedicated staffing, and I will use the word staff because there's a mixture of titles in there, but we also do not have an inspector to date, and in 2025, we would have 1. We also do not currently have a court liaison or prep person. In 2025, we would have 3. So you can see that in order to maintain that cop-to-pop ratio and the safety and the coverage that we want to do to move forward, it's a lot more human resources, a lot of people, and obviously when we look at the final number, the final item tonight is the budget. So Ward 4 carries a policing budget of 3.2 million plus for 2023. That number all in for all 5 wards would move to a current budget, I would say, of 7.7 plus million. So it's a substantial increase to get this level of service, and it's something that council will have to weigh heavily, and we will have to get lots of feedback from general public on whether they're willing to pay for that much to get a different type of policing service. Kristen, maybe while I'm finishing, we could hone in. I guess you and I didn't get a chance to talk about this today as far as what wards 1, 2, 3, and 5 combined are paying for RCMP today as part of 2023. But I will say the 2025 budget does not include any cost for a new building or expansion or renovation. So that needs to be kind of considered and taken in. We will say we did add new this year in 2023, which they are getting started this summer, a street crime unit. And that was added to address the influx of low to mid property crimes. And that will increase in the numbers of officers there. And again, the major crime unit being added is preparing for more, let's say, high crime severity cases. Right now, the majority of our cases, not all, but the majority would be considered low to mid. We would expect in the full jurisdiction to see a significantly a higher number of high crime cases. So hence a major crime unit. So I will say it's a bit to absorb, and Jim, you can feel free to reach out on any questions, but that's what we feel comfortable sharing with everyone to date. Again, this is all preliminary. This is all what ifs, because we are still waiting to hear back from the province and Minister Chris Dawson's department to see if they've agreed that the alternative policing model we submitted is satisfactory. So until we hear back from them, we won't even know if we're allowed to move forward this year. We have pressed upon them that we need to know sooner rather than later. This is time sensitive. I'll explain again. In order to change the policing model, we have to give the RCMP a full year's notice. And we would need to do so in order to take policing over in full on January 1st, 2025. We would need to notify them no later than December 31st, 2023, because they would maintain their service in full for all of 2024 as we build and get to the point where throughout 2024, we can take them on. Do you have a number for me?
$1,520,000 is what 2023 budget was. But I do understand that that's only 70% of their total cost, and the
Yes.
government subsidizes the rest.
Yeah. So the RCMP costs are subsidized at the federal level. So the portion that wards 1, 2, 3, and 5 pay right now, as Kristen just noticed, is 1.3. So you could do the math, 3.2 plus 1.3. There's a
1.5.
1.5. So there's a $3 million gap there that needs to be covered by all of us. There would be some increase probably on Ward 4, obviously, but the larger increase would be shared across all of wards 1, 2, 3, and 5. It's significant. Yeah, go ahead.
Dumb question here, but if the federal government's subsidizing the RCMP, would not stand to reason they should give that money to the Woodstock Police Force if they're covering that area?
They very well might. So that will be some of the questions that, and I think as part of this process, if they can't come back and say, we agree in premise on the alternative policing model that you submitted, there are a number of steps that we need to follow through on after that, as well as a lot of conversations with their department as how this is going to move forward and whether they will provide any resources and funding to us. That'll be up for discussion and hopefully would help weigh in on the feasibility of this. And but again, there's a big gap. But I will say, and Councillor Brown, you can add to this too if you want. When we sat in on the RCMP strategic discussion session, when asked what the cop to pop ratio was for our region, they really could not answer that, nor could they answer how many staff were actually in their roles and what their gaps were. So they really struggled to kind of identify that. So for me to tell you what that looks like today, I couldn't even tell you, other than I know that the one number they did share with us is for the entire region 12, they have 21 officers.
Region 12 is a big area.
Region 12 goes all the way from Lakeland Ridges to
Perth, almost to Perth.
Yeah, so 21. And we have 19 in Ward 4. So I think, and looking to double that obviously, and then some with new staffing. So everybody can absorb when asking, well, what, if we're going to pay more, what are we getting in return for service? Obviously that kind of cop to pop ratio will be drastically different than what's there today. There will be a minimum standard set of police officers that are out there 365, 24/7, which I think that would greatly impact and change the presence out there. And again, they're a more, I would say, known entity because they're our force, and they're, as we experience in Ward 4, that goes a long way in building relationships with the community and trust and things like that. So, but I will say this is a huge decision to make, because as if we do decide to do this, again, that high crime severity increases, so officer safety is paramount. We know in driving around our back roads that they are not in the best of conditions. There are a lot of considerations. So it's not an easy decision to make, and it's one that we won't make without consultation. So on that note, before I finish and we move on, we are, as noted previously, doing some meet and greets as to try and get out into some of the wards so people actually get to know which ward they live in, because discovered that has been a bit of an issue in people understanding, what am I, Ward 1, 2, 3, or am I part of a ward? And so the first one we have will be Sunday, May 28th from 1 to 3 p.m. at the Northampton Rec Center. So that focuses on Ward 5 in particular, though we welcome anyone, and all counselors are open to that. I know both myself and Councillor Leach will be on hand that day, and anyone else that wants to be there. That is largely so that it's just open, drop in, come and ask us whatever questions, if you have concerns about roads, but policing is definitely one. This is a good time to start to, if you have concerns, or if you're against or in favor, or we may be able to share a little more graphical information with people those days as well. So I encourage everybody to come out. It's a good opportunity to start having conversations. And then we'll get the rest of the calendar out when we nail that down. Okay, I will open this up to the floor before we move on, in case any councillor members have any questions or thoughts on this. We're more aware of all of this information than general public today. This is the first time we've really shared what it actually may look like and what it might cost, so.
I was just gonna say that I know people in my ward in the Jacksonville Wakefield area are asking a lot about if the town police came out, would they be patrolling? And that I do know that is part of the proposal, that there would be, like you said, that 24/7, 365.
Yeah.
Huge difference. Anybody who lives in any of the outstanding wards knows that today we have emergency services only. So the police will come if they have to when you call them, but right, the proposal would be that they'd actually be patrolling, which would be a huge change.
So to clarify, and I will throw this because I do know, there will be a minimum of 6 patrolling all the time, 1 in each ward, plus an extra in Ward 5, I believe was what they were aiming. And the goal would be to hope to have, that's the minimum, they're aiming to have 9. So there would be 9 patrolling all 5 wards, 365, 24/7. The minimum would be 6. So, but you have 9, 3 of their floaters. Again, with the RCMP, they do not provide 24/7 coverage. So this is a difference, but again, you can see that there's a cost to having an increased level of service. And again, so far conversations are around this table that we're not looking to kind of slash and hack the budget and try and get to a number that everyone's comfortable with, because it would decrease officer safety and level of service. So I don't think we want to really go there, because it just, officer safety is first and foremost. And if we're not going to give you a better level of service, then why would we go through all this effort if we're going to only reach what the RCMP is doing today? So anyone else have any thoughts, comments to date?
Well, just the initial cost is gonna be huge, because
Yeah.
you think, I wouldn't have a clue, but what would be the cost to outfit one officer? Like with
Yeah.
gear, guns, like everything, right? It's gonna be costly.
Yeah, now I
How many more
will,
cars do you gotta buy? And
yeah, I will say the.
Switch anyway.
Yep, the transitionary budget for 2024 and even to 2025, that assumes all of the gear that they're ready to go, have all of the vehicles, equipment. So the 2024 single year cost, original estimate did come in under, let's say, I would say it's around 6 million. The issue is it does not factor in the RCMP cost to maintain their service during their transition year. So that 1 year may be a big one to try and assume, and that's where we might see some help from the Department of Justice and Safety, because again, we're trading, so whether there would be funding to help kind of bridge that gap so that our transition year doesn't exceed a limit that just doesn't make sense or isn't feasible for us. So
It'd also be nice to hear from Gary Ford too, like if the RCP will still have a presence in the area. You know, if we needed assistance, like if our members needed assistance
I
along
think they'll
those
still have
lines,
to,
you know?
Yeah,
They still have the border, so I think they'll
Yeah.
still have to have a presence, because they're our
Yeah.
border control too, so.
Well, like I've
They'll
seen a
be
few,
doing good side.
yeah, like I've been out on a few situations and, you know, our boys are doing their job and then next thing you know, here comes some Mounties in.
Yeah,
Which
no,
is
I-
nice,
Like
you
I
know?
said, I think they'd have to
Yeah.
continue to have a presence here, just for that reason. Border.
yes, and that's information that would, and details that would get worked out in working with the Department of Justice and Public Safety and what the RCMP's role is. I mean, they'll still have highway jurisdiction, but again, if you look at what the Carlton North and Heartland are also suggesting they want to move to their own policing, what that looks like now, if we're all approaching this together for the RCMP, that may change their whole plan or stance. And also we've got to be wary of, I guess, and I'm not sure the exact right term that the Department of Justice and Public Safety would use, but in looking at what we want to cover, if there, we don't want to leave little sections that are kind of boxed in where we're trying to debate who covers that. And so there'll be those things pop up, and that'll be up to us all to figure out who's going to cover it. So are we assuming additional coverage, or are they taking it? But if it's in between areas that they don't cover, then those areas will be tricky. But they have been identified in conversations already that that's something to be conscious for all of us to figure out. You don't want to have areas that get boxed in based on boundaries. So hopefully that makes sense. Hard to kind of explain some of this stuff. Okay, ready to move on? You're up next, CAO. Going to item 7, CAO update.
4 things tonight. First couple, just they are say short and sweet. Hopefully we'll have more information at our next council meeting, which I believe is next week. That's on now. So if you see, our survey is back up and running. It's on our webpage. I think it's in seems to be a better area. I didn't even check it today just to verify that we still hadn't moved or anything like that. So, and then the survey through Facebook's been pushed, and it seems to have a better presence as far as people knowing it's a survey. I was hoping to have today for you just to see how much, if it has increased. I wasn't able to get those numbers in time for this evening to see. I probably heard more talk about it though. It seems like over the last week than I did the first time that the survey was out. But I know there's got to be a way. I'm not a big Facebook person myself, but how we can check to see how that is. So Crystal just wasn't able to collect that for this evening. Second one with the town square project update. Recently, Jim Scott from Trace and Mark Kohler from CBCL met with the low bid contractor to review that scope of work and check on the costing as it did come in over. They had that meeting. I wasn't at that meeting. I found out about it after it had happened. That being said, Jim and Mark and myself with Greg Stokes, hopefully this week we'll be going over what was called the reductions or the change in scope that was there. So they did find some good areas they believe. So I had asked them I would like to have it wrapped up so that we can have it at our next May 23rd council meeting so that we can consider awarding that tender. So that's to come as well. Third one with permits. At the last 2 meetings ago, I had given an update on where we were, and you could tell it was starting to pick up, and it definitely had. And this isn't, the numbers I'll give you tonight is not I'll say it's current that's as much as in the spreadsheet. I know Crystal does have 3 or 4 more on her desk that she's putting together, but to date we have 29 permits. We had 9, I believe, the last meeting. at a value of close to 3.3, project values of close to 3.3 million. That brings in just a little bit over $16,000 in fees that we would collect off the permits. A breakdown of those 29. Ward 1 has 4 permits, Ward 2 has 1, Ward 3 has 3, Ward 4 has 20, and Ward 5 has 1. So again, I said there was about 3.3 million. There's probably another $500,000 to $750,000 that's on Crystal's desk that she just has to write them up. So and we're May, so when we still know there's a number of coals in the fire, I'll say, with that. So it's definitely picking up. It's still a lot of interest, receiving a lot of calls from all wards, even though the numbers are definitely skewed more to Ward 4 because population, of course, but still lots of talk and phone calls daily in regards to different projects or just general questions on permits. So. Any questions on those 3? The reason why I say that, because number 4 will probably be a little bit longer than the others.
I have a quick question on the end date of the survey. Do we know how long that was?
We didn't put it in to
Okay.
that, only because we want it to be number driven.
Yes,
So
perfect.
when we
Good.
decide what it is, and then that could reflect pushing back our overall date for everything, which at first I thought, oh, that's unfortunate, but it's common. From what I'm hearing, a lot of municipalities are, when they're reaching out to the community, what their goals were for getting responses is down. And so it's not just us that want to take the time and kind of reset, and if it takes more time to do it, we'll take more time to do it. So there's a lot of other places that are even a lot further behind than we are as far as the public engagement piece.
Anyone else? We'll move on to 7.4.
7.4 is the active transportation memo, I'll call it a memo, I guess, that Dylan had done for council back in January of 2022. So this is when we had applied one for the active transportation plan, and then there's also money out there to kind of hold your hat out for different projects. So we had asked Dylan to come back with different options because we had to submit something to kind of get our share of the pie, if you will. So the document that was created shows has some characteristics on what Deacon Drive is now as far as size-wise, the length, the specs, I guess, if you will. It also includes a number of options that were talked about at the time. Currently, with our application that we have in, it is number 1, the path. That being said, we did that because it was a way to get our opportunity to have a project in the queue. So, and we did hear back, and we have got approval for some cost sharing. I forget the exact breakdown with that, 40%, I think, around there.
283.
Yeah, it was capped.
Yeah.
But this is the document. I like it. It kind of shows you the breakdown of, like I said, a number of different possibilities. One being the path, one being a bike lane on both sides of the street, different widths, sidewalk, pretty much all the different options that would work in that area. So we had said that we want the new council to see it because most weren't around the table when this was first brought forward. So if you want, we can literally go through everyone tonight, or if you want to, if you would have just got it on Friday, there's lots there. I will make a comment about the fund that we do have, and yes, we were told we would get money, and we have it for this year. That being said, we don't have to spend it this year. We have a couple years to do it. So basically, it's being held in a separate fund until we decide when we're gonna start. There's no start date on it, but there's definitely a completion date on the project, so.
Yeah, so clarifying the money that we were approved, the funding that we were approved for has, you have to spend for X date or it disappears type of thing, correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so I will add, there's, how many alternatives, or there's 7 alternatives or variations, and originally when it was presented to council back in January of 2022, there was no formal decision made, and I want to make sure that's clear, Jim, for general public, because we certainly, and I don't know if all of you are the same, but we get asked a lot, when are you starting the path on Deacon Drive? So there's really been no formal decision as to what it is we're going to do. Council at that point said, when looking at, and you can see the costs for other solutions, I'd say, Andrew, the quick summary on the first alternative, which was a paved path, was around, well, half a million back then. So we know obviously that would be higher today. But the second alternative started at about 2 million plus and then increased from there. So for us, it was an easy, if we've got to submit something, we're going to submit what, and having no money set aside and no idea of what type of funding we might receive, the paved path was submitted as a possible option. But again, there was no formal decision made by council as we were awaiting hearing back on what funding we might get, and also an active transportation plan study, which was kind of initiated then by that council. And we are still waiting on that, hoping to have that by hopefully the end of this summer. And we did not hear about the funding until this past fall.
December 22nd, 2022, we received a letter stating that they would support up to 60% of the eligible cost to a maximum of $141,000. And the project must be completed prior to the end of March 31st, 2026. Of course, you're probably not doing too many sidewalks in March, but that's their fiscal, so that's why they choose that date.
So I'd say, again, the 141 wasn't known, so it's hard. It was hard for it. The past council couldn't make a decision because we were waiting on these 2 pieces of information. So we at least have one, hopefully by the end of this year. But that does not mean that this council can't start to have conversations around what it would be looking at these options again. Obviously, the costs, we would need to almost go back to the table with what these estimates would look like, because we would need a new paving estimate, and we can assume pretty easily that the cost would be substantially higher. And now we know the funding would max out at 141,000. So that's a small portion of, say this comes in at $750,000 now. We're having to either come up with other funding sources if that's possible, or fund 500,000 ourselves. So it's a big decision.
With it being a federal, you can piggyback different programs, but not at the same level. So you couldn't find another, like the Canada Community Building Fund, we couldn't use that.
Yeah.
So you could find provincial money, theoretically.
Yes, yeah. So we're
Grants or
limited on what, so there's a big decision to make. So I felt it was important that this council at least was aware of what was presented before. And if you're asked on the streets today, now at least you know there was, for clarity, there was never a formal decision made. But I think it's a good opportunity for us to start at least thinking about this again and deciding what it is we want to do, and start looking at what the cost may be, a new cost. So I don't know if even at minimum we want to make a recommendation tonight to staff to at least get us an update on what a new quote would look like for a paved path. Can we do that, I guess, CAO? At least.
It's pretty simple to do.
Yeah. Do you need a motion for that, or?
No.
Okay, so if that, is everybody good with that? At least it starts the ball rolling, and let's get a new price on what that might look like, and then go from there.
Are we still just pricing Craven Street or all the way to Main Street?
We'll update the memo,
Both.
so for all the different price breakdowns of all the different options.
Anyone else have any thoughts, questions before we move on that one? That's all right.
And was that to be shared with the walkers and bicycles, the walking path mutually shared? Yeah.
Maybe the path one was spec the same as what's down through Connell Park. So, do both.
I think, might have had the width in there somewhere, 2.5 meters wide, yeah, so.
I believe when that one was done, it was chosen for that because a lot of spreaders, when you put it in as narrow as possible, like the driveway spreader, that's pretty well as narrow as you can get it. Not that we would have gone less, but
Public Works can clear it like in the wintertime, going once each way. That's it, basically.
there's, yes, they can, yeah. I've seen them use the backhoe do it, and it's done in one swipe, and then, with the other, sidewalk units, yeah, up and back. Yeah. The other 5 feet, or I think the blades are 5 feet long.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, move on to item 8, correspondence, which we didn't have any in the end this week, correct? Okay, well, it's an easy one. Item number 9, new business, so 9.1, we have Woodstock Rotaract sponsorship request. So that is in your, if you're following along in your document on page 20. So, CAO, do you want to do, and there's a handout, the handouts that go along with this for your reference is the 2 pages that show what our to-date kind of summaries and available budgets are for both community sponsorship and, yeah, tourism sponsorship. Yeah, I can take this one. So as, if you all remember, the Rotaract sponsorship request is for the Rose Garden, community garden, which we all had a great presentation from that group previously. So specifically, they are asking for $10,000 towards a chain link fence for security at the community garden. They provided a budget breakdown to us, which is included. They are receiving some additional other funding. The start date of the activity, so essentially it would be completed this year. Knowing the area that it's in my opinion, chain link fence is a must for this. And it is in general anyway for every other community. When we were researching, when I was doing my research on this, along with them at the first of the year, fencing was paramount for keeping out animals, keeping out all kinds of other things, and to help to prevent vandalism and things like that. So I definitely think it's wise for them to consider that this is something they need in the first year. But I will throw it out to the council floor to see if anyone has any questions, thoughts, comments on this. If we look at, before we do that, if you can see we've got community sponsorship, so we still have a remaining budget. And Kristen, am I reading this correctly? The 10,000 was still included in there. So we've already, the remaining budget would assume approval.
If we approve the $10,000, it would leave $20,000 left for sponsorship this year.
Okay, so there's a remaining budget of $28,750. This, Kristen's got it noted under community sponsorship. So between the community funds we have 2 separate pots, as you know, one under community and one under tourism. This seemingly, in our conversations, felt like a better, the right bucket was under community, because it's not necessarily tourism driven, it's for the community. So there's, and if you look at the remaining budget we have for the rest of the year based on the MOUs we have in place and other funding. Under tourism, we only have 15,750 left. So there is a substantial amount more left in the community sponsorship fund. So as you're thinking about this, this is the bucket we're suggesting that it comes from. That's up for debate. So I'll open it to you guys. Any questions, thoughts, concerns? Yeah.
The south side can absolutely use more projects. There's been a lot of turnover over the years, and there's actually quite a large area that they've flagged off for the new gardens. So I'd really like to see it done well and add to our side of the bridge. It's quite literally in my front yard, so I'm excited to see some new changes and stuff. And yes, fence is absolutely a must on that for security as well as to keep things neat and tidy.
I was just gonna add for anybody listening that doesn't see this or hasn't seen the package that, I know the Rotaract team's done a great job getting a lot of community sponsorship already. So they've essentially, if you look at it later, have gone to every hardware company, every contracting company already. So they're kind of at the end of who they can ask for favors from, which is I think why they need us to step in at this point and help. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, it's a good project. I think if it's in the budget, it'd be nice to see.
It's one-time cost.
Yeah, it is, again, that's right. This is a one-time ask, so, and a good Kickstarter. And from my perspective, if I don't know what other good reason we couldn't have for a community-sponsored fund than this. I mean, this is all about the community, and it's for the community to use. So I think this is, in my opinion, I like this project, and it might be a big kind of ticket item for us in looking at what our top dollar is we use as sponsor, but I think it's an important one, and for me, I'd like to see it get kicked off successfully from year one, which fencing is a must in order for that to happen, I feel.
What is the square footage of the area that's gonna be fenced in? Yeah, but I don't think.
It initially was going to be 180 by 180, but when we but when we mapped that out the other evening, it looked more like 160 by 160.
To leave a little space between like the sidewalks and stuff.
Yeah, and the next property that was kind of bordering it, so we're gonna put once we get the fence, we're gonna put it next to the neighbor's fence, not connected to it, so we need a little bit of space between.
And how high is the fence?
And the 6 foot fence. 6 foot.
So within the hours of operation,
Every member of the garden, so there's an online form to fill out, there'll be a code block on the garden with a passcode. So if
Okay.
you're a member, you'll have the code, so you can come and go whenever you want.
okay, that's good.
Anyone else have any thoughts, questions?
Quick question on your lighting. How many different dusted on, or are you just relying on the street lights or adding additional?
So we did email and talk a little bit about dusted on lights and having those installed. I don't think we came to a final solution on that yet, but we would like to have some of those installed as well, because we do realize it could be a little dark in places.
Yeah, I will come see, I was up there, it's back there now. Did we get any further on streetlights? I know we had conversations because a request was asked for additional, just so we all know how MD Power works. Maybe you could explain so council understands who shoulders the cost of putting.
Yeah, the streetlights on Broadway and Union, both on the opposite sides of the street where the garden is, so it doesn't help.
Yeah.
Except for one that actually is not working. So I don't know if it's just burned out or if it was part of the school, is my guess, because it's a single one. So whenever we have streetlights, if we were to add them, there is no cost to us to have it installed. But we pay a monthly rate just to pay your power bill. So I forget the number off the top of my head, but when you're looking at one or two, it's minor, like $30, $40 a month for it. So they would have to come. now then, I noticed how it was laid out, that someone from MB Power would come and, basically say this is where it has to go. It's not just a matter of putting a pole in the ground and running wire to it. They do have to have it pretty much at as much as the 90s as possible. They can get into other angles, but then you're getting into anchors and other poles, the whole pole. So now that we know where it is, we could go over and kind of get an idea of good location for them.
So the answer is we're working on it. And but I think given the cost, that was something that the staff felt they could absorb. And to be honest, if a developer went in there, we'd probably absorb same costs anyway.
We should be careful, we don't put too much lighting over there though, like, I'm just,
And
maybe
yeah,
It's in the back of
Councilman
my mind.
McCartney, you know,
It's in my mind too, because we've got those two streets that shine right through, plus, you've got Main
Yeah.
Street there as
yeah.
well, so.
I think MB Power, that's part of their, when they're speccing where lights go, it would be specific light styles and angles, and
Yeah.
they would be conscious and cognizant of where lights could go or not based on neighboring houses and how that would reflect and dust look on and all that. So I think we would really rely on MD Power in their planning to guide what style and what would need to go.
Are we taking lights out of the town square when we do that project?
The lamp posts, the decorative, yes,
Are we reusing them or
no.
could they be put over there?
Well, yes, that could be something to talk about for sure.
They're nice looking light, they're not up high,
Yeah.
let's say getting into people's windows and that.
Yeah.
type of
Be
thing.
less light pollution.
I mean, the road rat girls, if they took a look at it, said that would.
Yeah. Because they do shine enough light, because there's a reason why they're at intersections
Yes.
too,
Yeah.
so it helps with the.
And they're nice looking ones.
Maybe Greg McPherson could help us figure out a solar
Yeah.
thing in there.
And then they're dusting on there, they're not, or?
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Yep.
And is that all underground?
It is.
But again, I mean, you're gonna be, if the posts are going in, there's still.
There's gonna be underground
Yeah.
locates anyway.
Just something.
Yep.
Yeah,
something
no.
to consider.
I have one further question. What are you doing about parking?
Yeah, so on our draft, there is a parking lot, so, on the area, there's sort of like a cutout, I guess, it's right behind the person who has a chain link fence on the Broadway side.
Yeah.
So we talked about having Ag Construction help us put a parking lot in there, but the other evening, we were over, like, flagging it out, we realized it's sort of a natural driveway, probably where the old school had a driveway.
Yeah.
So we parked our cars there, and it worked well that evening too. So both are outside of the fencing, so we're still kind of debating which one's gonna be better. But there will be places to park on the property if we're not fully on the street.
It's Union Street, I think, would be a better access for you for parking, because it's not as busy of a street, but it's a narrow street to begin with. You've got a sidewalk right there. So if you're gonna have a parking lot with adequate parking for that, I would definitely be in favor of that, because I think it's gonna be safer than parking on the street and just creating a little bit more of a congestion that way.
Yeah, it seems like a quieter street too. Broadway seems really busy, so
Mhm.
yeah, we like that idea too.
Okay. So I guess I would throw it out to you folks, see if anybody is willing to put a motion on the table to support the Woodstock Rotaract sponsorship request in the amount of 10,000 for a chain link fence for security at the Rose Community Garden.
I will.
We got it moved by Councilor McCartney, seconded by Councilor Bradbury. Any further comments, questions? Everybody ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. I think that's a motion approved. Okay. So, this is a big one. Next one. 9.2, 2023 capital expenditures. Speaking of spending money. That's papers. Okay, so this one in particular, I guess we're gonna tag team on this one. We've got myself at the end, Kristen's gonna start, and CAO Andrew as well on this one. So Kristen, are you kicking us off? Perfect.
Okay, so for the 2023 budget in the general fund, we had budgeted $688,000 for capital expenditures. This amount was determined by what was necessary to balance the budget, which has historically been kind of the common procedure. However, I will say that that is not going to continue, and for 2024, we'll be looking at changing that. So the new process, similar to what we actually did to determine the allocation of the budget for 2023, is that we'll work with all department heads, request input from mayor and council, we'll review business cases and submissions to determine the necessary capital budget, and then based on the amount of money that we need, we'll then determine the impact on the tax rate and what we need to do in that regard. And the conversations for next year will be starting immediately for next year. So far this year, we've spent $335,000 of the $688,000, which is almost 50%. Of the total on the new fire truck that we had ordered at least a year ago. So that leaves $353,000 to be shared amongst all departments. And we have been looking at our Canada Community Building Fund to potentially add an additional $900,000 if we are able to change the 5-year plan that we currently have. Andrew will speak to that and a little bit more of kind of how we as a team divided and across all departments and the allocation for each.
And pass it off to them.
He's up.
Kristen had mentioned about the community candy building fund, so I put a notice in to Luke Terrio, who looks after the plan, to tell him what we were thinking in regards to to that fund. When we talked about removing one of the projects we were going to do and replacing it with paving. So it wasn't so much replacing it that paving is a new project. It's just we want to add to it. It's already identified in our plan as an approved project. I'm just reaching out to him as far as the details, just to let him know what our plan is for that, the amount, and if he would want us to resubmit. Even if we do resubmit, they're very quick, very, very quick on letting you know if it's approved or not. So that's been done. I'm just waiting to hear back from him on that. So I'm just going to break down when we were meeting, discussing it, we kind of broke it down into public safety, recreation, streets, and building and infrastructure. So I'll start with public safety. There's approximately $243,000 we're going to spend. These numbers I'm going to give you is actually the cost plus our portion of the HST. So they're real numbers. People like different things. I know the other day Kristen wants to know what's the cost, what we're going to pay. So, and I'm the same way. So, under public safety, we get into talking about the firewall replacement at the police station, the body worn cameras and equipment, the marked patrol cruiser and equipment, the jackets, the winter jackets, the jail cell. We replaced one in the past. We're looking to do another one this year. And their radio system, which is just more of them. So that was approximately $243,000. Under recreation, it's about $139,000 of capital investment. Items we're talking about was a safety canopy, lift gate, a floor machine for cleaning, some safety ones in regards to the roof safety tie downs. Replacement of a pool pump and a pool heater, and there were also a half ton. Getting into the street and the things, this was the big one, just a little under $636,000. That included some paving on our designated highway. That is outside of the designated highway program. That was by far the largest. That was more than half. We talked about the asphalt spreader in our meetings, truck, the traffic crosswalk signals. There was 5 of those identified, and then I guess just some general paving on our sites. So that was about $636,000. The last one we did was about building and infrastructure, and we had about $100,000 identified with that. That could change depending on other options that may come up for equipment. When we, and I guess I'll use the words. It actually doesn't matter if you have in yours, because it's good to repeat them, and so that we all know. So when we were together, as we discussed, we talked about being responsible, fair, and having compassion. So we believe that these items, with public safety, recreation, streets, and with our own infrastructure, definitely covers those three headings, if you will. So let's talk about
I can go through the spiel. I will say that in going back to the CCDF fund, which is the Community Canada Building Fund, which we're trying to get away from, but for those that are used to hearing gas tax, that's the former gas tax. So there's the big item that shifted in that's being asked to be removed is one that was for that we moved to utility. So essentially that was for lining, for the sewer lining, and it was a huge dollar item overall of the CCBF. And again, we've talked a lot about water. We've talked a lot about changing water rates, and the change in the water rates is allowing us to move that where it should be, which in reality, the CCBF fund can be used for that. But I think in going to what the CAO brought up, the responsible decision there was to move it over to where it should be. That freed up a significant amount of funding for us in the regular funds to help with other items. And I will say, even though, we scraped around and looked at how much money could we come up with this year, even in looking, I'll use recreation as an example, the amount that we selected there, the items literally scraped the surface of kind of what their full need and ask is. We didn't add anything in addition to the downtown or beautification this year, simply because there isn't enough money to do everything. Plus, we do have a huge infrastructure project happening there with revitalization of the downtown square. Plus, I know the BIA is working on some new initiatives that we're hoping to maybe partner and piggyback with them a little bit more next year. So we do feel like at least most every area, and to be quite frank, we could have taken every penny and spent it on roads, but we can't do that. We have to look at everything, share the love, and I think in the next meeting or two, we will discuss all of the things that we will be doing under utility, because it has its own budget. So you haven't heard us talk about utility and what we're doing specifically there, but we are going to be able to move forward with a fairly extensive amount of projects there, and that's good and necessary. So I'll start off. I just want to clarify that was one significant change with the CCBF fund, which hopefully the paving they'll see that as an easy, quick change. I will go through, I have quite a few comments in addition to what I just said. So I will say throughout the conversations that we've had this year, council has recognized that there is a need to add additional people to the staff at various levels of the organization to help fill in gaps that exist today, and to help to get us in a better position to provide the level of service that we want in the community that has more than doubled in population. And as we went from what we say 15 square kilometers to 500 plus. So We also know we need to look at staffing for both future growth and for succession. However, on that note, council did request before major hiring decisions were made to have a third-party consultant company come in to do an analysis of the current structure of the organization and to talk directly with all the directors and frontline staff to outline any pain points they're having in operations. The company was selected and they're already over halfway through initial conversations with the remaining schedule, I think, to be done by the end of this week, correct, Laura? So, and our clerk Laura has helped work with that consultant to do all the scheduling. And I will say the staff did embrace this idea and they've been excellent in participating in this process with the consultant. So we are hoping as a result, the HR consultant will give the council a presentation of the findings and provide recommendations to better guide our spending this year and where we may need to budget further for next year and future years. And I will say there are funds set aside. That's the one piece that the CAO hasn't noted, that there are funds set aside for this year for some additional hiring. And we are hoping that this step with the HR consultant will help provide insight for council and ultimately staff who are carry forward and make those ultimate decisions and do all the hiring and put people in hopefully the right places. So I wanted to share that because I thought it was an important decision that council made and was accepted and I think embraced, let's say, by the staff as in general. So as for infrastructure, we have also identified that the town hall building that we currently are in tonight is essentially out of space. So we've identified also that both the police and the fire hall are out of space for growth. So, and for really, quite frankly, current needs. So staff has an extensive amount of conversations, I think, to have right now to seek, first and foremost, a temporary home for council. We will move sooner rather than later to someplace temporary to free this space up for any needs of that the town administration has. And also, I'd say we need to, in general, look at the town hall from an administrative standpoint. The objective would be to look to move the town administration staff, and we would all hopefully go together. But I would say, I think most of us around this table and in past conversations and in our tours around, I think we'd ideally all love to be in the downtown. And we will be looking at that, and that's some of the conversations and the research that the staff will be looking at, and whether a temporary space down there can be found, or we may have to look at our own facilities and spaces that we already currently have to find a home temporarily. There's a lot of homework that needs to be done, but at the end of the day, the good piece is that we do feel confident that if we can vacate, the police can assume this building, at least for the foreseeable future. It will be absolutely necessary if a decision is made for them to expand. You already heard the numbers as to the amount of staff. So at first glance, I think some more homework probably needs to be done on that too, but they already absorbed the full basement now. They have a team down there, and that space is, their current police force space is small and not meeting their needs today, and it certainly won't meet the needs as they grow. So I think ideally, at least, it looks like this building can be used, and there needs to be a lot of, I think, homework done on their part to ensure that this is going to satisfy. And then the other big piece in all of this is the fire hall. So we've beaten thrashed this conversation around a number of times, but we know that the need is great there as well. And so we're trying to, I think, look at those conversations to see what makes sense for a fire hall and what is necessary and what is, and we're looking at if we're covering, a greater amount of space, what is the most beneficial for the community. Do we build one really large fire hall, or should it be detachments? What should it be? So I think there's a lot of conversations to be had. And whether even then, if the fire hall vacates, can the police then again expand further and absorb the entire space, or can it be rent out? So as far as I would say infrastructure, the only thing we felt safe spending money on was public works building. So I think we've agreed that they'll get some love and care, which Andrew kind of identified. We've set aside an amount. I think we're trying to do a little bit of a juggling act with when to start that, so that we can balance if that project gets done half this year and half next year. We'll probably borrow some money from next year's budget, maybe Christmas, to get that one done. So we might be able to I guess acquire some other equipment. And so I'd say, before I wrap up my comments on the equipment, I'd say again, the CAO mentioned an asphalt spreader. So that's a large piece of equipment and an expensive one that will allow and provide us with the ability for our own public works department to be able to do some paving. And that could be in the manner of some side streets and better patching and repair. It is expensive, but I would say the other piece of equipment that the deputy mayor and I got to witness last week was, we did get to go down on Connell Road. And if anybody wants to go on Connell, heading up Connell Road towards the top of the hill, I would say, there's a good sized patch. How wide was that, do we figure? Do you remember?
8 by 12.
8 by 12 on the right-hand side. That should look really black in comparison to everything else. And that was a demo of an asphalt recycler. So it's a piece of equipment that we're looking into whether we may acquire as well this year. Personally, I think it's a no-brainer, because in reality, it will pay for itself fairly quickly. I consider both the spreader and the recycler investments. They will pay for themselves. It might take a year or two, but then after they pay for themselves, then we start to truly save. So the asphalt recycler is exciting, simply because it will allow us to do a level of patch and repair work using hot asphalt all year long, which means no more cold patching at any point in the year. And in reality, I think we determined that one test patch that we did would probably cost in the range of $4,000 to $5,000. That test we did was, last I checked, under $1,000 to do with the recycler, because it's using old asphalt. So asphalt that we're pulling up, and I understand we have about 40 tons sitting stockpiled already, probably more to add to it. So it's good. It's a good way to reuse old asphalt. There was a block of additive that you essentially throw into the old asphalt to provide that tackiness and to get it back to a more normal shape. I think what we're looking to do now is, there are a lot of other municipalities that have acquired this and have had these in use for a year or two. So we think the Greg Stokes, the Director of Public Works, is wanting to follow up with some of the other communities to see how long did the recycled asphalt last? Was it a good amount of duration, so that we know if kind of really what to expect in that regard. So I think in all of the budgets that we've set aside, we could probably juggle some things around, in my opinion, and just hearing the conversations and watching that demo, conversations even with the deputy mayor that day and Kristen in finance. It's important to, in my opinion, to acquire that now, so that we, even though we didn't necessarily plan for it, it allows the public works department to play with it and use it. What is the capacity that we have to, within the staffing that we have today and the summer staffing, to be able to, what can we do with it? And if we And that's what we want the answer from them, is if I had 4 more summer staff, we could do X amount more. That's the answers we need in order to budget properly for next year and to really maximize the use of that equipment and really start to see the return on the investment much quicker. So I'm excited. I'll let the deputy mayor comment on kind of anything, his thoughts, but again, the other piece of this is, we've heard a lot of complaints and we're struggling to work with DTI to date on setting priorities for roads in the other wards outside of Ward 4. So this is an area where I feel it's open for discussion. Maybe they can work with us with the capacity that we have to do some of the small work like potholes and things like that in wards 1, 2, 3, and 5 and pay us to do it. So if capacity is an issue with DTI, we can help with that. If cost is an issue with DTI, we can probably offer it cheaper. So again, these are the types of things that even though we maybe didn't necessarily initially plan for the recycler, now would be the time, in my opinion, to acquire it. We know we can resell it for equal value for at least the first year or two of its lifespan, because they're in hot commodity and they're, but again, just knowing what that one patch could have potentially saved us in cost, we wouldn't be long recouping what we pay for it, and then it starts to become a really good return on the investment. I will throw it out to Deputy Mayor to comment if he adds any.
You hit it pretty well on the head.
I've said it all.
We budgeted a lot of valve replacements this
Yes.
year too, and this would be the ideal machine. They can take it right to where they have to do their cut to replace the valve. They take the asphalt, they cut out and put it aside, and when they're done putting their new valve in, put their gravel back in, they tamp it, and they take the asphalt that they cut out, put it in the machine, throws in their little lock a tire, mixes it back up, puts it right back in the hole. Costs absolutely nothing for asphalt, where a cut that size, like the mayor said, would cost $45,000 to $5,000 for a new asphalt put in. So it saves a lot of money.
Machine available?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So noting that we've already stated previously publicly in a meeting, we know there's at least 12 valve replacements. So take 12 times 5, right? Minimum 5,000, I should say, just to patch and repair. And as a CAO, you and I were talking too, even like if there was a water main break, had that happen, we've had it happen in the winter. And that becomes really difficult because the asphalt plants are closed and you're trying to patch and fill holes with other means or cold, and it just doesn't necessarily give a very good result.
Look at the one on Connor Road right by Green Street,
Yes.
all winter.
Yeah.
Or the one on
That's
Broadway.
one.
That's the one they
Yeah, no,
tested.
I'm saying that's been there all winter.
Yeah.
And like Greg, they were down there every week putting in either millings or
Yeah.
gravel and packing, and it just doesn't stay. First
Yeah.
time you go through, like snowstorm, it plows back in.
Yeah, so I think it ends up being, in my opinion, a very smart upfront investment. And again, these two, if we're going to move forward, we'll have to make the decisions fairly quickly. As Kristen would explain, they become capital borrowing, which we have to seek permission for, and that doesn't necessarily happen overnight. But so that's my thoughts on capital expenditures overall this year. I think at the end of the day, the one big miss that I'm seeing when we look back at our municipal plan, which is going through an edit and a review right now, is we have not touched active transportation. I am hopeful that if we can get this study back by the end of the summer, it will help us determine weaknesses in what we offer today, and we need to just revisit that and pay a little attention to that. And again, we want to focus on downtown. We want to focus on all these areas that have been identified in the municipal plan. But we'll admit today we are not hitting all of them. We just aren't. There hasn't been enough money set aside, but we will get, I think, better at deciding a good balance between what the taxpayers are going to pay every year and what we may borrow, get better at identifying projects that we can start to build and set money aside for in smaller increments so that we can tackle other recreation projects that are out there and all kinds of roads and infrastructure work. So slowly but surely, that's where we're at today. Any thoughts? Yeah.
I was gonna say, just talking about the active transportation, that I know it's not ours, but I know that the ride share through the Regional Service Commission, I know it's just growing, but that is an opportunity for, you know, at this point, people get into medical appointments and things like that, so it's a small win.
It is a small win, and recognizing that at the regional level, transportation, this does fall under the region, so they will be obviously tackling that. This is their first attempt at the urban rideshare program. I will say that the success of that is going to hinge on volunteers, and they are lacking volunteers. So we'll do another shout out that if anybody's able and willing, that is only successful if we have people that can actually participate in it. So,
and just a note to that, it's not 100% free. There is a cost associated, and the volunteers are reimbursed.
Yeah.
For gas and time.
So it's not and I think we've got cards in here. There's, if you go on the Western Valley Regional Service site, there's links to get information about that. And Councillor Williams is correct. There isn't, you don't have to assume all costs and liability. There is means to get your pay a certain per ride and kilometer, I believe. So, yeah. Anything more to add, CAO?
I know
As
Chris
you're
is
looking down the
going to
list.
finish. You know, now, most of these items that we had discussed there in our meetings are under the threshold that the CAO can write.
Correct.
Of course, there's conditions on making sure you get quotes and that kind of deal, but it's under the $25,000 limit. But there are some that will be coming back for council. They'll be tendered and they'll have to be awarded at the council. Kristen does have a couple that she wants to talk about.
Yeah, we have two for this evening that are ready to roll, which we are on the list and no change as far as what we've seen. So are you ready for those?
I'm actually gonna pass it over to Laura.
Perfect.
Yeah, yep, we've got those. Yeah.
Do you want me to read the motion? I'll share loud.
So the first motion is to approve the purchase of police body worn cameras and server storage and retrieval for the Woodstock Police Force in the amount of $72,735 plus HST in the amount of $3,116.99.
Okay, get a mover and a seconder.
Perfect. And the second motion.
Do we want to handle the two together or one at a time to get the motion? Do you want me to?
Maybe.
Yeah, okay. So motion's on the table. Do we have any questions, comments before the question? Yes.
I just think it might be important to explain the process, how we got here tonight.
Yeah.
Because these are just appearing
Yes.
randomly here tonight. We've had a lot of discussions prior to.
Yeah, all of these items have already been, let's say, pre-vetted, which that's how we want things largely to work moving forward, and that's part of budgeting moving forward. This year, we're already starting. We've already got lists of everything that we didn't make the list this year, started the list for next year's budget, and then I'm sure we'll have lots of asks. So, yes, usually we would see, and this is a little bit of an anomaly tonight, but the rest that come to us will come in a template that has a little bit more information that's provided on the spot. Tonight it's
And
two items that we've already
these two
discussed.
would have also been in Gary's strategic plan, and they were
Yes.
presented in that package back when he did that in February, I believe, so.
Yeah. We've already seen the case studies for these. So, thank you, though, Councilor Brand, for noting that. No other questions for the question? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion passed. Second one.
Perfect. Second motion is to approve the purchase of a 2023 Dodge Durango with equipment and decals for the Woodstock Police Force in the amount of $76,177 plus HST in the amount of $3,264.41.
Councilor Bradbury on the motion.
Switch up here a little bit. See if everybody else is sleeping. Sleeping over there?
Oh, that's actually there.
Any thoughts, concerns on that? Anybody ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried. And that's it for tonight, because I think a lot of the other small ones that were ready to go, CAO can approve, and again, the rest will come to us as they're tendered and the results come in, recommendations back. So, ready to move on to item 9.3.
I didn't get a schedule, so I can't.
That's okay, I'm sorry.
That's no problem.
Yeah,
Thank you for inviting me in to give a little update on the airport. My name is Matthew McClatchy. I'm the president of the Woodstock Flying Association. The association has 56 members and is served by 7 board members, all of which are pilots and aircraft owners, although that's not a requirement to serve on the board, we just happen to be. We have 32 aircraft stored at the airport, with over half of those being used regularly. We have 2 flight schools that are currently active, serving about a dozen students regularly who are active. That number changes as people get their licenses and move on, new people come in. The clubhouse is also used by Elections Canada, so it's used as a community service there, so you guys come out and vote as a polling station there. The entrance was recently beautified, if that's a word, so come on in and check that out if you haven't yet. So the front entrance of the airport now looks much better than it used to, so that was all done at no cost to the town. The members and the board members got together and had that done, so it looked really nice. You guys should come up and check it out. And a perfect opportunity for that would be the monthly breakfast. So the second Saturday of every month, we hold breakfast up at the airport. During these colder months, we do hold it inside of a heated hangar, so you can come in and enjoy bacon, eggs, pancakes, toast, orange juice, coffee, the works. The breakfast usually feeds between 60 and 80 people. So it is a pretty large event that the community seems to enjoy. So something that we're happy to do for them. We are holding the 55th anniversary flying to the airport. We are planning on, I don't know if you guys remember the 50th anniversary fly-in we had 5 years ago. Anybody can do simple math. We had helicopter rides, airplane rides. We had supercars going up and down the runway, racing airplanes and helicopters, and it was a really good time. Barbecue, bouncy castle for the kids. We had search and rescue out there, and EMO, and a bunch of other organizations. So it was a really good time, and we're planning on doing the same, and hopefully getting up in the ante a little bit. So come on out for that. So as for some updates as what's going on over there, we have some new construction being considered. We have 3 new hangars that is under consideration. So we have 3 individuals who like to lease land at the airport and put up buildings. There is also a plan for an office expansion for one of the flight schools. So that is some construction that will be going on hopefully this summer if everything goes well. We also have been approached by several of the students, the flight students who are from out of town, to bring and park a camping trailer on the property for their own accommodations while they're up here training. We are drawing in people from as far away as Quebec, PEI, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland. So there are people coming from all over to little Woodstock here to get their pilot's license, because that's how much of a demand there is for it right now. And there are not very many schools offering this service, especially in this province. We do have some requests for maintenance. And so to preface that, we have also the ask of the lease fees to be collected by the town, so that those fees can then be turned around and put back into the airport. That's something that we have been working towards for quite a while. The way it works is if you'd like to build a hangar, you lease a plot of land.
and then that lease money comes to the town, and then hopefully that lease money can then be reinvested back into the airport. Currently, we don't have any sort of budget over there. All of our funds comes from members donating their time and resources. We do have a membership fee for the members, but that money usually pays the power bill and internet, security, and whatnot. So we're hoping that we can sort out the lease situation so that we can start getting some money back, because we do have some things that we would like to have done. I did recently submit an email to the town requesting that some trees be cleared from the town end of the runway, as they are imposing a hazard to landing aircraft landing in that direction. Happy to report that we have figured out how to clear those trees at no cost to the town. So those trees will be taken care of if they haven't been already. So A1 for, or +1 for the good guys there. We do have quite a bit of additional land though on the south side of the runway that we feel should be cleared for safety reasons. In my opinion, there shouldn't be a single tree on an airport. There are things for airplanes to fly into. We don't want to do that. So if we could get some help with clearing some trees. Right now it's just light brush, but the longer we leave it, the more it's going to cost because trees get bigger. The apron, so this is the part of the runway where the airplanes come in and stop and turn around and refuel and whatnot, was chip seal, or is chip seal, and that chip seal is starting to deteriorate. That turns into gravel, and propellers like to pick up gravel and throw it, so that's a safety hazard. So we would like to see some repairs on the apron. We did plow the runway. We had a couple of test years. We understand that the runway is a huge investment from the town. They put a lot of money into getting this runway up to a very good spec, and we did not want to plow it for the longest time because we wanted to protect it. We had it evaluated by Gemtech. They came in and drilled some test holes, and they gave us their professional opinion that it is safe to plow and to use year round. And so this is our first year where we plowed it through the winter. It held up fantastic, and it was used extensively by several of the pilots, and we had some aircraft fly in from out of province, so it was really good to have that available to people who needed it. We do note though that it does require a little bit of maintenance now. It wasn't from the plowing. This maintenance has been required for some time. The runway was paved in sections, and so those sections where the seams are have begun to separate and crack. We've tried our best with whatever resources we can get from Canadian Tire to fix it, but those are not holding up well. So we would like it if the town could perhaps find some money to come over and repair those properly. Again, with the thought of if we do a little bit of maintenance now, it's going to save a lot of maintenance costs in the future. We would also like to just mention that our future plans include extending the runway. We currently have 2,000 feet of pavement plus another 1,000 feet of grass. We'd like to see all of that pavement eventually, and then even further. What we're hoping for initially is 3,500 feet, and that would make it adequate for the air ambulance. Currently, we don't have an airport that's local, that's owned by a municipality that the air ambulance can fly into. They can fly into McCain's, and they have, and they will. But McCain's is a private airport, and they have every right to close that down at any time they want to. We're a municipal airport. Town's not going to close it down, and we're open to any aircraft 24/7, 365. And God forbid any of us have some sort of accident and need rapid evacuation to a more suitable location. Air ambulance can come right into Woodstock and pick us up instead of having to take the road into Fredericton first or to catch that ride. So that's something that we would like to do in the future, just to serve as more of something that we can do to serve the community. So eventually, we'd like to see 4,500 feet total, but we'd start off at 55. So we understand that is a huge expense. We don't expect that to happen anytime soon. That's something that we want to work towards. And I just wanted to bring it up now so that it could be thought about, considered, and then, you know, maybe just like the last time that we put the runway in, section by section, just a little bit each year, and eventually we could get up to a safety or a safe distance that we could use regularly. Lighting as well for the runway is something that we're considering to, again, allow aircraft takeoff and land at night. Currently, we do have some pilots who are brave enough to try it at night, and they are perfectly legal to do it. We have reflectors up, which is in Transport Canada's recommendation that reflectors are allowed because the aircraft landing lights will shine those reflectors back at you and let you land. But personally, I would like to see some electricity over there to make things just a little bit safer. So that's my report to you guys. If you have any questions, available anytime, now or in the future. Andrew has my contact if needed.
Do you have any quotes on the lighting?
I did. We looked into it a few months ago, and would you believe I didn't bring those numbers with me? That would be something that I can make available, absolutely.
What did you ask?
If you had quotes on lighting.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, we can absolutely get those.
What do the lease fees bring in?
Well,
That's what I was gonna say. So we have it so that, we haven't sent them out yet for this year, but we will shortly. Hangar fees, 30 cents a square foot, starting 2023. That
do
cost.
you know what that will bring in?
I don't offhand. That being said, Matt did have,
I used to, yeah, I have that number somewhere.
yeah,
Right here.
the amount of hangars and actually, it's on the,
It is on there.
we have a big map of the future development of it, and it numbers all the hangars and the square footages of all of them, so it's easy to get.
I will comment, thank you, by the way, and thank you for being patient.
No problem at all.
We're at the bottom of the
Yeah,
list,
no,
but I will
great.
say, I felt it was a pivotal time to bring, because Matt acts as our liaison. He's the board member that is the liaison for the town for this MOU. And since I was on council, we've never had a presentation from the airport, and I thought it was important and pivotal in discussions on budget and how we're going to move forward, that needs to be part of, and these conversations need to happen along with our natural budgeting to set appropriate hangar fees every year, and for us to start to look at what type of investments we want to make for future and what needs to be covered for maintenance regularly. And as we know, paving is expensive, so
But you're
these,
getting new machines, I hear. I was very happy to do that.
we might be able to help you out. So again, some of that is, this is another example of where we may be able to do some work ourselves potentially, but in any,
And we are fairly quiet over there, and the airport's on the other side of the river, so we don't get a whole lot of attention from the town. And we've operated quite well for several years on quite a bit of a shoestring budget. We know how to get things done over there. We have several people, several active pilots who are in the construction business, who do paving and do other things. And so we have some donation and some time from them available as well. We can work with the town to keep this as low cost as possible. We understand that airports are often a controversial topic, so we don't want to irritate anybody. We just want to keep things safe. And I want to stress that the economic impact is positive for the town, having an airport. We bring in a lot of individuals from far distances that you may not realize because they're pretty quiet, but they're coming into town, they're renting our hotels, they're buying things, they're buying our gas. It is a big impact for the town to have an airport. And how many municipalities can boast that they have an airport, right? We have one, and it's pretty cool.
And I will say, on the note of the air ambulance, in past conversations with other members of the flying club, there's always a risk that the McCain's thing ends, or that just doesn't work out that day because of conflict. And we do also have a regional hospital here, so some of these things do make sense, and I feel like anything that can strengthen our need for that regional hospital is a good thing. So I will note that has always been on the back burner, because we've relied heavily in our whole region on the support of McCain's, and that is, we've taken good advantage of that, but it's not a forever. At some point, this is a good ask, I guess, or a good reason for that, yes.
Just on the same topic, I guess I was just gonna say, I know we talked a lot about what opportunities now that we are one region, can we consider something a regional something? Is this the regional whatever? Could this be now a new regional airport? And we could maybe get some more provincial money if it's a regional airport, so that's just a thought.
Yeah, go for it.
Just keep up the good work. think you nailed it right on to like tourism, the whole 9 yards. You never know who's flying in. It could be anybody. They could be looking to expand their business. Just one quick question, just gotta keep it simple. How big of a plane could you land there right now, or, because where I'm going with this, I'll back in the question a little bit. Like, I'm thinking like some of the corporates, you know, they might have their own plane. We've got 2 mining companies here that, you know, either helicopter, or it's very usual for them to have a plane on the go. Could we accommodate something like that, or am I way up left field?
Nope, we have the ability to land light twins, so twin engine aircraft that are on the lighter end. The air ambulance can theoretically just get in and out right now. That's a King aircraft, I guess. Sorry, I don't need it. So the air ambulance, if anybody has seen it, that's about the maximum size we can get in right now, but that is with no margin for error. So that's why we would like to extend and widen the lights and whatnot. So the corporations that are currently operating in the area of mining and whatnot, their aircraft are probably on the larger size for what we would be able to offer right now. Helicopters, of course, are no problem, but I mean, the Kings is also an option for some people until we get sorted out.
Keep up the good work.
Thank you. And on that note of people coming in, weekly, if not more, we have aircraft coming in out of province. With all of the flights through the 2 flight schools, you probably have noticed an increase in air traffic. But not all of that is just us irritating you guys. Some of it is actually people coming in and landing and using the airport too from away. So yeah, it's more regular than you might expect.
How wide is your runway?
Right now it is 75 feet up.
Need a bus system up there. Get those pilots in here, spend some money.
We're working on a courtesy car.
Yeah,
Done.
that's a
So
good idea.
we'll be able to use the courtesy car to come to town.
And if we can build up the urban ride share,
Absolutely.
there you go.
Yep.
You said it's 2,000 feet?
Currently it's 2,000.
Doing math over there, Mark?
Let's give you a minute.
Do you see the smoke coming out?
You'll be driving that spreader, aren't you?
Those,
Come practice. This is going straight line.
mobile homes out there, are they belong to you folks, or are they,
Say again?
the mobile homes there right at the end of the runway, are they yours, or are they?
So the green mobile home, there's a singular mobile
Yeah.
home there. I'm not sure who owns that. I think there's some sort of arrangement with the town, but I'm not certain. I know the individual that lives in there operates as our security currently, and he's an imposing gentleman, and he will find out where you are from if you show up, if he doesn't know who you are. He's good to have.
Any other questions for tonight? I think we'll probably have some more follow-up, but again, lots of conversations on the staff side to work out the hangar fees thing and to get us a bit more numbers moving forward. And again, you're gonna have to be part of budget conversations and things like that moving forward. Very good. We're gonna switch a couple things. We have 2 items remaining, but we're gonna tackle, item number 9.5, consideration of first and second reading of the Jason Fox rezoning application. And CAO, do you wanna speak to that first?
Okay, so this is consideration of first and second reading. We did the public hearing earlier. We know what the project is by the application that was done by Dylan. Now's the time. Hopefully, I can answer any questions that you may have for that. I do know probably everything you need to know was in that PAC report of what it entails. The question had, trying to get my notes up. The motion, again, that was brought forth by PAC was to approve it with 4 conditions. Before we get into, actually, I want to explain what these 4 conditions are, and then also just want to talk just for a second in regards to, on page 6 of what that report was, when you read the conclusion, even though you read the recommendation first, the conclusion made it sound, so they contradicted each other. But I think if I explain what the 4 conditions actually mean, it'll give you a better understanding. So it was to approve the application. The 4 items was the application is brought into conformity with the town of Woodstock municipal plan. So a lot of times when we have a rezoning, it could be an R1 or an R2 property, and they're looking to build a bigger apartment building, so we're going R2 to R3. That's a pretty straightforward rezoning application. When you're when you talk about our municipal plan, you look at that map and a zoning map, they are similar, but they are 2 different things. And I'll explain that. Where when you look at the municipal plan, that map, the heading could be residential. So that residential could be R1, R2, R3. It's a residential zone. The zoning map gets more specific, R1, R2, R3. It gets more into the details. So that one, when you have an R1 to an R2, that's just a simple rezoning. The plan recognizes that was supposed to be residential in that area. In a case like this, you're switching it from a rural resource to a light industrial. So on that map, it would show it as rural resource, and we're going to switch to, well, anything outside of that really would need not just a zoning bylaw, a rezoning. It would need a municipal plan amendment. So that's what that one means. So, and when looking back at the conclusion, it says the rezoning won't be official until that municipal plan is changed. We would have done that process from the beginning if we weren't in the process of changing our municipal plan. So basically, A will take care of itself later on in the year when we adopt the new plan come August, September, or whenever it is that we're able to finish it by. So A will take care of itself with it. Now, it won't take care of itself if we don't do the rezoning. It would stay the same. We're not going to change that if we don't need to.
Yeah.
It would only happen if the rezoning went through.
Does everybody understand that?
Good, because I thought I confused myself there for a second.
No.
Sometimes I know in my head it's here, but I just don't know if it comes out, so.
No,
The second one talks about establishment of a legal easement over one PID to another. Basically, that's our property, so it's basically allowing Jason and his company to travel on our property to get to his. As you saw by the maps, it was surveyed that way as a future street. So that's pretty straightforward itself too, but we have to give them permission to do that. I'll jump C and go over to D. The environmental protection, land use designation, and zoning that applies to a portion of the subject property is maintained, and any associated policies, regulations are adhered to. So basically, as we know, there's a large brook that runs through, or a brook that runs through that property. So although the application shows it far enough away from the brook, if for whatever reason part of the parking lot or landscaping got within 30 meters, any wall walk permits would have to be applied for and adhered to. So that's just in there just to protect Jason. The third one is you folks all have the color coded from Dexter. So in the report that Dylan had done, they say the property owners enters into an agreement with the town of Woodstock to design and upgrade Wallace Street, as well as the proposed driveway access to the satisfaction of the Director of Public Works, Utility, who's Greg Stokes, at the property owner's expense. You can see where it's divided into section 1, section 2, section 3. Yeah, you have this right, Jason. Yep. The different sections, and that was done because the first section in section 1, the blue, is the paved portion of that street. Section 2, you get into an area that's not really paved, but it's that section that surfaces further up to the church. And then Section 3 is is basically will act as the driveway to the property. I will say that we heard from Mr. Cox that during the presentation that, and I think everyone does agree that the street does need to be upgraded, needs work, needs attention. Jason is not so inclined to want to do section 1, but is willing to do section 3, which is the part that he is will be utilizing. And we saw the breakdown of what that would cost. It is a lot of money for sections 1, 2, and 3. Section 2 definitely needs the whole thing needs it for sure. I guess for me, the question comes into, would Jason and the company be responsible in everyone's mind to do all 3 sections, or just the section 3, or whatever portion of it? Dylan had suggested that should be all 3. I think Greg didn't 100%. Greg Stokes didn't 100% agree with him having to do all three sections. But, the lower end definitely would need some patchwork and would be on a street that he would identify in the future to need to be paved, regardless if this was going to be happening or not. And I guess I would tend to agree with him on that.
Can we clarify, I guess, for everyone around the table that the original intent, or where this is coming from, is the change that previous council made a few years ago with the developers' agreements on roads, and that my understanding of this concept was largely for new development, new streets. I think this might be a little bit outside, in my opinion, in reading everything, of what the intent of that was. I do not perceive the original intent was for a developer to have to fix an existing street. I get the street's not in good repair, needs work. I don't necessarily agree myself anyway, in reading everything, that was the intent, was to use this same rule on existing streets. That was largely for new development and new streets. So I don't know if you have anything you can add for clarification for those of us that none of us would have been, I guess, around when those decisions were made at that time.
You are correct. Like if a new development was to happen, where it's unused property and it's the beginning of it, I'll use an example, perhaps off of Deacon Drive, there's a property across from the manor. If they wanted to re-subdivide all that area, they would have to be responsible for building the street, curb and gutter, asphalt, the whole thing, from say Deacon or off Main Street, and to whatever property it would be. It is for new development. Yes, this is a new development, but it's at the end of an existing street. One could argue that, if you're going to build a house, be unfortunate with the house burned just up past Nielsen, if they were going to build that, would they be responsible for having to patch all the Main Street to get to it?
Great example.
Where do you draw the line with that? I know that's an extreme, but how far off is it really? So,
You want to throw it out for comments, questions at this point, I guess? Yeah, go ahead.
Does the existing street need to be widened or anything like that to accommodate Jason's new business in there, or is it just the fact that it's deteriorating to be re-topped, or?
Yeah, you can see with it.
Like I don't think Jason should be responsible for fixing our existing street.
Yeah.
But if the street has to be widened, the asphalt has to be widened to accommodate him, then I think maybe he might have to look at paying for the widening part.
Sure, and that's a fair comment.
But if it doesn't need it, that's all I'm asking. If it just needs to be fixed, then we should have to fix it.
Yeah.
If we have to make improvements to it, make it wider.
Right.
Improvements are
That's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah, and that's a fair comment for sure. When Greg Stokes met with the Dexter reps, they looked at what the width would be, and with the proper padding and proper sealing of the street, they felt it was wide enough.
My opinion is, it's an existing street, I can see him having to pay up to the existing street, but I don't think he should be responsible for.
Agreed.
They already own.
Consensus?
Yeah, I think that's.
Okay. So in order to do first and then therefore second reading, we would amend this, or do we wanna look at what the new wording would be? Can we say the property owner enters into an agreement with the town of Woodstock? Can we take C out? Because in reality, would it be understood that they, obviously section 3 is understood, is it not?
If it reads C, the property owner enters into an agreement with the town of Woodstock to design and upgrade Wallace Street, as well as propose driveway access to the satisfaction of the director and public works and utility at the property owner's expense. I think you could still keep that in there because the agreement would be for section 3. It probably wouldn't hurt to reference the
I
document.
think this needs to change though. C would need to, the wording would need to change because it isn't to upgrade Wallace Street. It's really only to
add his driveway.
Yeah, to add his driveway, which to me is this language usually used in other, go back to your secondary example of the house. Would you put language like that to cover a driveway? Is the driveway assumed a normal part of the development? Follow me?
I do.
If that's already assumed, is this needed at all?
If that's the case, I think we could take,
C right out.
completely leave it out.
Right, because I mean, if he wants dirt as his driveway, that's his
That's
call.
his business.
I don't think he does. He did.
In my opinion, but I guess that's what I'm asking, if that's the natural assumption. The only reason C exists in here is because it's addressing
Well, section 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I feel like we could probably pull that right out, because he would have, let's put it this way, we're only going as far as section 2. Anyway.
To the end of section 2?
Right, to the end of section 2, then section 3, he's on his own, so I don't know that we need to, I think we could take C right out. Yeah. Clear?
But was there a time frame somewhere talk about as far as when the town would do the upgrades to Wall Street? Was there anything mentioned there?
Yeah, I think at this point, neither of that work, other than we could possibly do some grading, and this may be where some future conversations with Director of Public Works, I think they felt like they could do the grading to smooth out the road so that as he's transporting everything in and out, that it's better conditions, but that everybody was satisfied that, and really, in my opinion, why would we pave that this year anyway if he's going to be running back and forth across it all? We would want to wait till he's done. Yeah, so I think he assumed we wouldn't have to absorb that into this year's budget.
Well, that's what he said too, we probably will build it this year, so.
Right, so, yeah.
Sorry to keep calling you Eve, Jason. It's a he.
So on that note, I don't think we still need anything in this bylaw to allude to that.
No, that's just a
That's
commitment that we
part of-
say that we will do.
Yeah.
We can't write that into the.
Yeah, and that would get ironed out with an actual building permit application.
Yes.
Timing, and so that all those details would fall under that. Does that make sense? Are you ready to?
Can we go?
So are we comfortable tonight in doing first and second reading?
Yep. It's been a long time coming.
Yeah, yes. It was on the table way. You have my motion.
I do.
Mhm.
Second page.
Oh, yeah. Okay, could I get someone to make a motion to proceed with the first reading of bylaw number Z-501-06, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-501, a zoning bylaw? Moved by Councillor Martin, seconded over here by Councillor Bellier. Yeah, everybody ready for the question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion passed. So we'll have the clerk read the full.
Full person.
For the first, okay, perfect. For consideration of first reading, Wallace Street PID 10124394, bylaw Z-501-06, a bylaw to amend bylaw Z-501, a zoning bylaw. The Council of the Town of Woodstock, under authority vested in it by the Community Planning Act, SMB 2017, C19, enacts as follows. The purpose of this bylaw is to amend bylaw Z-501, a zoning bylaw. This bylaw may be cited as a bylaw to amend bylaw Z-501, a zoning bylaw. Under the Community Planning Act, bylaw Z-501 bylaw enacted on the 22nd day of March 2021, together with all amendments, is hereby amended to rezone the property PID 1012394 from rural resource to light industrial in order to permit a retail and associated warehouse use subject to the following conditions. The application is brought into conformity with the Town of Woodstock municipal plan. The applicant provides confirmation of an established legal easement over PID number 10220036 in favor of PID number 10124394 to permit driveway access to the subject property. The environmental protection land use designation and zoning that applies to a portion of the subject property is maintained and any associated policies, regulations are adhered to.
Okay, could I get a motion to proceed with the second reading of bylaw? Eager bunch. Bylaw number Z-501-06, a bylaw to amend bylaw number Z-501, a zoning bylaw. Moved by Councillor Brown, seconded by Councillor Leach. Okay, everybody ready for a question? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Contrary minded, nay. Motion carried, and I think we will read this by title this time.
Consideration of second reading, Wallace Street, PID 10124394, bylaw Z-501-06, a bylaw to amend bylaw Z-501, a zoning bylaw.
We have one more item, but we'll give a minute in case anybody, because it's just discussing the summer council schedule, so we'll give a moment. I know somebody's yawning. In case anybody wants to exit us.
Call the night. Thanks. So just for the record, so third reading, we'll do this again. Sometime next meeting. You have to give 30 days.
Oh. No, usually it's, well, I would say usually it's 2 weeks, but that's.
Yeah.
I'll have to verify if we have to do it next week. I think we could probably do it next week.
Yeah. Okay, so last item on our agenda is the summer council schedule. So we wanted to share this with you. You had a copy of this one, correct? Yeah. Just gonna go over a few dates for you. So this is what we're proposing. So we have on obviously we have our meeting scheduled for next Tuesday night. And then we have on the calendar June 6th, not a formal council meeting. That will be our HR consultant meeting, which will be in camera. So that would be that night from 6:30 PM to 8:30 PM. So we're gonna drive June home and we get a couple of breaks in here. So then June 13th, Tuesday night, we'll have a CIC and regular council meeting. Then June 27th, we have a regular council meeting. Then we're gonna have a 4-week break and have one meeting in July, on July 26th. And I will say then we have another 3-week break because we have 5 Tuesdays in August, so it just happened to work out, which is okay. It allows us to have another 3-week break and then still 2 meetings in August. So then we'd have August, a meeting, regular CIC and regular council meeting on August 15th, and then a regular council meeting on August 29th. So there is the odd chance here that with a lot of the tenders going in and out, that there might be the need for a special meeting just to approve items, which would be fairly short and simple, especially if we're ready with their templates by then. And we have all the information that we need at the time, but those should go quick. Same with, in case we had any further sponsorship applications, hopefully we'll see the bulk of that stuff before we kind of get through June and then move to a little bit. I will say, we've been driving pretty hard since January 1. There hasn't been a Tuesday.
People can still apply for sponsorship? I thought that date was back in April or something.
Well, technically that has not been, we talked about, we still have not formally passed all of that application and policies. People can still technically, I guess, apply up until it was supposed to be the end of April, but I think this year we're going to have to extend that, and even then, I mean, we will have unused funds.
Something in my head saying that we had put a 2-time a year kind of deadline.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah.
We have twice, so
Yeah.
that any, people can still apply. We may hold that, however, this year where really we're coming with this new policy in the middle of the year with no advance notice to public, we're probably gonna have to just give some leeway, I'd say, this year. Plus, we have some funds still sitting there, so if someone comes through with a viable, but good point, and good question, and we have talked about the fact we still have not actually.
I was just asked that today.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure, I'll ask them,
Right.
but I think the date was back in the end of April.
That was the proposed date. I remember
Yeah, but I think we're gonna have to give some flexibility this year. So how do we, are we good with that schedule overall?
Laura's gonna send that out, right?
Yeah, yes.
We'll probably end up having some public consultation sometime too. With
Yes,
listening.
yeah, we'll, and those
And we've got meet
again,
and
we'll
greets.
probably, and meet
Yeah.
and greets, so we're gonna be busy.
Strawberry
anyway.
socials.
Strawberry socials.
So this,
Yeah.
you've only got one meet and greet scheduled so far?
Yeah, we're working on, we have all the locations identified now in every other ward, we're just trying to nail down some dates, and then we're trying to tailor it to, plus we were waiting for this police, kind of overview tonight to give good reason to encourage people to come out, to have conversations with us around that. So we're hoping to maybe nail some more dates down this week. So we'll hopefully have that scheduled out as well, and so we're still busy, but I think just when we think they were gonna be on the schedule anyway. So I think the few weeks off is good timing. Plus the staff are crazy busy that time of year, and they're gonna have a lot on their plate, so it gives them a little less work and trying to get stuff to us, so. If we need to have a special meeting for a reason, we'll always stay open to that, so. So if everybody's good with that, we don't need a motion for that, we just know that that's what we'll go with for a schedule. Okay?
Yes.
All right, good, so could I get a motion to adjourn, as we, for the first time this year, do not have a committee of the whole.
Laura owes me a soda. We're done before 9.
We're done before 9.
Well, unless
Mark talks for 5 more minutes.
No, don't give him an in.
Yeah, could I get a motion to adjourn? Seconded. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Nay. Adjourn.
Mark said he wants to keep going.
Can't believe we're already about 10 o'clock.